State your name, speak clearly 4 to 5 inches away from your microphone. Having said that, our first item of business is called to order, and we'll begin at the roll call, rather, and we'll begin at that end.
Okay. Leanna Waller with Captain John Mullen.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake.
Colleen Beal, Wilson Park.
Melissa Neidig, River Road.
Carol Garlington, West Kangali.
Randall Gunn, North Side, West Side.
Ed Nolder, Riverfront.
Heidi West, City Council.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street.
Ray Aiken, Farviews, Petty Canyon.
Bryce Rowe, University District.
Julie Devlin, Rose Park.
Danny Tenenbaum, Lower Rattlesnake.
Birdland Lake, Grand Creek. Mark Foss, Southgate Triangle.
Do we have a quorum?
A quorum is present.
Thank you. The next item will be the adoption of the agenda.
This is Doug Grimm. I move we adopt the agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the agenda be adopted. All of us in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda is adopted. The next item is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone read the minutes? Do you have any additions or amendments to those minutes? Any comments? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adopt the minutes from the last meeting?
I move we adopt the minutes of the last meeting. Doug Grimm. Mike Banner, Rose Park, second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes from the last meeting be adopted. All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are adopted. Do we have any public comment from the audience on non-agenda items? It's non-agenda items. Seeing none, we will move on to the presentations. Yes.
Colleen Beal is here for the record.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our first presentation will be an update on the 44 Ranch Park, Leanna Waller. Yes, you'll need to have that on, yes.
There we go.
MCAT will insist on it. Yes, there are thousands of people out there hanging on your every word, so.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for having me. Good evening. My name is Leanna Waller, and I'm a resident in the 44 Ranch neighborhood. And I have been sort of a part one of a part two park committee that's been working on developing a playground for our park over the last 2 years now. The picture up here that I have is actually of the pavilion that's located in our park. It's a wonderful space. If you haven't been there, you can actually rent this pavilion. Just give a little plug for Parks and Rec that you can rent it for parties and events, and it's featured next to our beautiful water feature we have there. We're very lucky to have such a beautiful park, and a playground would be an incredible addition to our park. So I'm excited to kind of share with you guys what we've been working on. If you're not familiar with 44 Ranch, which I grew up here in Missoula, and when I moved back, I had no idea what 44 Ranch was. So just to kind of orient you up here, this is working. So up in the right-hand corner here is the Pleasant View neighborhood, which you're probably all very familiar with. Next to that is Hellgate Elementary. And then to the left of that, this new development over here is the 44 Ranch. I believe it was established in 2007, 2008. The main road here is Mullen, so we're just west of Walmart, about a mile and a half. This is an old photo because we have had a considerable amount of new homes being built in our neighborhood, so actually all of this is now developed with a new road that just came this summer. So our neighborhood is growing, and we're seeing a lot of young families moving into our neighborhood, a lot of children. Up until this summer, we only had one entrance into our neighborhood, so that's improving. We're getting better flow of traffic. You can see in the middle of this area, of this, where'd it go? There it goes. Here is our park, so you can see that we have a really nice field there. We host a lot of sporting events during the school year and practices. And then this tiny little gray space is where we started. This is our park that was developed by our developer when they first built our development. And until 2017, it sat as this open space full of sand, which many of the neighborhoods called the large kitty litter box, which unfortunately attracted as many cats as it did children, which was not appreciated by me. Excuse me. It also, you can see, is a nice foundation for what could be a really wonderful playground. It has siding all the way around it, and it has two ramps there that I believe are ADA accessible ramps. There's two benches, so it's a really great foundation. We just don't have a lot of the great equipment at that point occupying it. So 2017, a lot of neighbors just started talking about what was going to become of this space. Up until that time, I think there had been a lot of rumors and who was responsible for that park, and no one just really knew. So I guess too, part of a reason why I want to share sort of our story of how we got to where we're at is because there might be some of you who in your own neighborhoods are looking to advocate for playground equipment or to develop a park in your neighborhoods, and I'm hoping that if nothing else, this doesn't just encourage you to come out and check out our cool neighborhood, it would help some of you who are looking to kind of do something similar like we've done in our neighborhood, and this could help with maybe a pathway of doing that. So it really just started with a bunch of us talking about what could fill that space and what we all wanted, and from there, a couple neighbors started contacting our city council representatives, Parks and Rec, and we just started asking, what do we do? How can we get a playground? What we have now is not sufficient. It's not meeting the playground needs for the play needs for our children in our neighborhood. And our closest parks are not within walking distance. Hellgate Elementary was the closest to our neighborhood, and then after that was Pleasant View. So in order for our children to access those parks, they would have to walk along a trail along Mullen Road and then cut in through Flynn Ranch to access those neighborhoods' playgrounds. So we really wanted something closer. And so our contacts with City Council and Parks and Rec kind of gave us a foundation of what we needed to do. Their advice to us was to contact our neighborhood council, which up until that point I had no idea what neighborhood council was, and that led me to join the leadership team, which has served to be a really wonderful thing in our efforts to get a playground. Next, they wanted us to organize a neighborhood meeting, so get all our neighbors together and talk about what people wanted to see in that space. So we did that actually in May of 2017. We had our first neighborhood meeting, and we talked about what people wanted, what people were hoping for to maybe occupy that space. And through that meeting, we established a park committee, which now consists of myself and my neighbor and dear friend Sienna. And we talked about getting a consensus, so signatures from neighbors in a letter written to City Council asking for support for our project. They advised us to make a plan, and this was a plan in the sense of what would our playground look like, and so we collaborated with Parks and Rec on, as they're the experts in developing what a plan, what a design for our playground would look like based on the age range of children in our neighborhood and what would best meet the play value for those children. Then next we talked about raising money, which was an interesting part of this project when going to neighbors and talking to them about what they thought about fundraising and what that should look like. And I think in here, I'll go over, but one of the big things in our neighborhood, and this might be in similar neighborhoods, but we have an HOA, and there was an option of maybe increasing HOA fees or doing a private donation. So that was something that was really important to our neighbors and how we went about raising and collecting those funds. And I think above all, the best advice that was given to us through our contacts with City Council and Parks and Rec was to be enthusiastic. So some of you are maybe looking at a project like this in the future for your neighborhood. I think the more enthusiasm you can bring kind of gives you more support. So I think luckily for us, we were very excited about this project. It wasn't just a playground to us, it was a gift to our children and the children to come in our neighborhood, and so we felt very passionate about that, and we stayed very focused in keeping this a positive thing. And I think that really helped us, and it's got us to where we're at now, and I think we're on a pretty successful road of having a complete playground here in the near future. So when we met with Parks and Rec, this was the development design that we came up with. And if you have not met with the guys over there and Donna Gockler with Parks and Rec, they are fantastic and they know so much about playgrounds, more than I would ever think about in designing something like this. And I can appreciate it so much because they had all the safety concerns that a mom would have when it comes to a playground. So they came up with this playground. This is what we would like to see for our playground as a complete play value for the children in our neighborhood. It has several play pieces here that would meet the needs of children ages 2 to 12. And they're all strategically placed here, and Parks and Rec came up with all of that. So this was really helpful. This was a great tool when we went around and canvassed our neighborhood, because we were able to bring this with and show people in our neighborhood, like, we could have this. Will you support us? Will you consider donating to this? So if you are considering something like this, meeting with Parks and Rec and getting a design template or something that you can take that's tangible, I think is really helpful. How we got support, at our first neighborhood meeting, it was decided that it would be best if our park committee canvassed our neighborhood and really had one-on-one conversations with the residents of our neighborhood on what they would like to see. Well, first, if they would support a playground, or if it was something that they didn't feel we needed, and then if they would be willing to donate money in support of that playground. And then part of the piece of collecting donations was, would people prefer to see an HOA increase, or would they like to do a private donation? This was a wonderful opportunity for us, not only just to get to know our neighbors, but it allowed us to collect a lot of feedback on what people wanted and what they would like to see occupy that space, and what they definitely did not want to see occupy that space. So it was really helpful. It was a very helpful tool for us. We just did a simple survey, and as we went door to door, we just collected people's responses. We then came up with a pledge form, which I have on the next slide, which was a very simple tool, and I'm happy to share any of this if there are people out there who are looking to do this. We created all of our own forms, and I'm happy to share any of those tools with anyone. We also found that media was very useful for us, so we both had Facebooks and social media, so we blasted that to all our friends and family about what we were trying to do to gain support from people who weren't necessarily living inside of our neighborhood. We also got lucky and had the Missoula Current come out and do an article on our neighborhood. So reaching out, I think, to all of those outlets that are available to us to just help spread the word and also share our enthusiasm, I think, was a really positive thing in our path. We, at the neighborhood meeting, also collected emails, so of course we started right away a newsletter, a neighborhood newsletter to all of those who provided us their information so that we could keep them informed on what we were doing. I think that really helped us gain their trust and their support. So this is the pledge card that we used. It was just a simple card that collects their information and then the pledge that they were willing to donate. Our neighborhood decided that private donations were best for us. One of the things that a lot of our neighbors liked was that it allowed people to opt out. Of course, an HOA increase meant that everybody was required to donate, and there were some people who felt that they didn't want to donate or that they didn't want to support a playground in our neighborhood. So I think this was a way that accommodated everybody's wishes. Our neighborhood goal was to raise 10%. So that's something too I didn't mention, but in the beginning, when we had our first neighborhood meeting, one of the biggest topics of discussion, and if you can remember back to what that space looked like, it kind of fit perfectly for what either could be a splash deck or a playground. And a lot of neighbors really were interested in having a splash deck. What we learned is that splash decks are very, very expensive. They're also limited in the time that you can use them. They're mostly open from June to September, so we felt like that was sort of a disadvantage in the amount of use that kids could get out of it. We were also concerned with the amount of traffic that would bring to our neighborhood. There was, at that time, was only one entrance, so we felt like being the only splash deck on the western side of town would probably mean we'd see a whole lot of people coming through. So 10% was our goal. If we were looking at a splash deck, that 10% was pretty high. Playground was around, at that time, 100,000 to 120,000. So we felt like we could raise about $10,000. And we were excited to do that. I think mostly our neighborhood response was a lot of excitement to get this put in, and that people were willing to donate their own money, which we're very thankful for. So we ended up raising about $2,500 in private donations from our neighbors. We also applied for 2 grants. One was the Neighborhood Large Grant, which we were awarded, and that was in 2017. And we also applied for an Appleseed Foundation grant, which was $6,500. So we, within, I think, 6 months, had met our 10% goal. So that was pretty exciting for us. Then brought a new challenge of how do we collect those funds. I certainly did not want to be collecting checks from people. So we were fortunate to find out that there is a company, a nonprofit here in Missoula called Friends of Missoula Parks. A lot of you probably know of them. they act as sort of like a fiscal agent and can accept those donations and hold those and then pay those out for services from those accounts. So there's a quick application, easy to do. One thing that's really great about Friends of Missoula Parks is that it allows people to make donations online. So we were able to direct our residents in our neighborhood to an online website for them to make those donations. All those donations are tax deductible, so that was also a benefit. Missoula Parks and Recreation also can set up an online account and collect funds and hold those. It was important for our residents to know that they were not a 501c3, so they are not able to make those tax deductible. So we just sent out a simple flyer informing people of how they can make those payments. And then in the meantime, we were very lucky, and we, in the summer of 2017, we were awarded basically a donated play piece that was valued at about $41,000 from Spectrum Aquatics. They had an employee who passed away, and in his honor, they wanted to donate this play piece. Missoula Parks and Recreation had chose us as the recipients for that piece, which we're very, very thankful. This allowed us to kind of start at a place that was not zero, so it was really exciting to have this piece given to us. So Missoula Parks and Recreation also donated the fall zone material and the labor, and they were able to install this in October of 2017. So we were really, really lucky, and we're very thankful that we initiated this in May of 2017, and by October we saw some progress. So we're very, very thankful to the City of Missoula and Missoula Parks and Recreation for helping us get to where we're at. And as much as we are in love with this play piece that we have, it's really been so awesome for our neighborhood, for our kids. We are still hoping to see that we can install about 10 more pieces to make our neighborhood playground complete. And so currently, right now, we're discussing a potential phase 2, which would hopefully bring 2 swing bays and what's called a discovery cave. It's sort of like a cave that has rock climbing on the outside and something for kids to climb in through the inside. This would be really great in meeting more of the play value for children who are younger. Right now, the donated play piece meets kids who are aged 5 through 12, so we're really kind of missing that age group of 2 to 5. So we have raised about $12,000, and we're hoping that with the current money we have raised, we can install these 2 pieces, or these 3 pieces, relatively soon. Missoula Parks and Recreation has also submitted a funding request to City Council for completing our playground completely, which would be funded through the 2020 budget. And I think the value, or the amount we're asking for at this time is about $70,000 to complete that entirely. And we're hopeful that that will get approved, and we'll see a completed project here by hopefully next summer. So that's sort of like our history of how this project has come about and where we're at. And I hope that this is helpful for somebody if they're looking to do the same thing in their community, or if you're just wanting to check out our park. We would love to have you guys come on out and see what we've been working on. So thank you guys.
Okay, thank you very much. We're running a little bit behind time. I could entertain maybe 1 or 2 questions if there are any.
It's a quick one. Did you say that Friends of Missoula Parks was tax deductible?
Yes.
They're not a 501c3.
They're a nonprofit. Yeah, and they'll send, they'll send all the paperwork you need to provide that for when you file your taxes too, which is really wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, I ran over.
Thank you. It was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
Okay. Our next presentation will be on the Bancroft Trail, John Connor.
Still on here? Yes? Bear with me here. I've got to put this in play. I'm a Mac guy, so I'm lost. Where's the play button, Marley? That? Okay. All right, my name's John Connor. I am a volunteer on the Bancroft Pond Steering Committee. Been doing that for almost 2 years, and that steering committee is a subcommittee of the Lewis and Clark leadership team. And we're going to talk about the project that we're partially through with. I'd say mostly through with, but there's still some cleanup to do, but it's good to look at. Not nearly as involved as our great last presentation here. About 2 years ago, Lewis and Clark neighborhood was, as I understand it from Colleen, it was Colleen. And she did a great job of recruiting, and we just moved to the area, and both my wife and myself got involved in it, so it's been a lot of fun. And we started the subcommittee just because that was a major focus, and it broke it away, I think, from the leadership team handling some other items. When we started looking at the park, we wanted to define what could the steering committee do, what was good, what was bad. There was already some older documents out there. And so basically it boiled down to, we were looking at about 3 major projects. And last fall, we'd broken out to different groups, and the Trails project seemed to be kind of the simplest and was ready to go, and that happened to be my responsibility, and some other folks contributed also. So it was originally put out there as, I think when this group looked at it when it was approved, it was called 88 Trails, and we've kind of backed off that language through some advice from the city, and now we call it the Improved Trails. So we started with this simple idea as one of the major tenets of what do we want to help with this park, and that was to make the park more welcoming and accessible to mobility challenged people. It's a great little park. It's managed as a natural area that's different than playgrounds and grassy areas and picnic tables and so forth. So there's some real hard and fast management objectives, and Morgan Valiant came in and kind of educated us on that. There's things you can't do. You can't build certain structures. Everything has to be approved. Plantings have to be natural. And there was just a lot of learning for several months as we went through this. But we also realized what a great place it is in the middle of the city, where you can go. It used to be called the duck ponds, and for a while it was the children's fishing ponds for you folks that have been in Missoula a long time. And so it's always had that bend. This is just a nice place to escape. They tell me you used to have to walk a plank across a ditch of water before they put the bridges in. Maybe some folks remember that. So we wanted to make it more accessible. The trails were in rough shape, roots poking up like a trail that hadn't been maintained, but it had a lot of use. And that just sort of steered us. So looking at the trails, we decided that we needed to improve and renew the entrances, especially thinking mobility challenged. There is one curb cut on the main entrance, and it leads just in a short distance to a trail that is really root-bound. I happened to run into a fellow there, and I live right across the street, that was paraplegic in a chair with an attendant, and he'd come over to eat his lunch, and he could bump over the roots. And I just interrupted his lunch because that's the type of guy I am, and said, you know, what would you improve here? This is a young fella that is in that condition, and we had a good discussion. And he pointed out, I could do this, I can do that. Said some of the guys I know in this condition would try this, they'd try that, but most people would look at it and not come in any farther than the sidewalk. And so that's how we got on improve, renew the entrances. Upgrading the walking paths, we just discussed that to as near as possible the ADA trail standards, so I researched the federal standards, and boy, there's a rabbit hole to jump down. But it's very interesting. And then we decided we needed to consider the access needs of all possible users. So this is, you know, everyone that's mobility challenged, from a walker or somebody that's just getting old and slow like me. And so that was the guiding thing, and we built on that. So so when we started thinking about this and realizing our other two projects, one is improving the bird habitat there, and the other, that is funded and will probably happen this fall through a private grant. And the other one that's still in the hopper and still in the early stage of design is an outdoor classroom, because there's so many kids that come from around the city and use that in a classroom setting. So that is something we hope to be sitting here again talking about. My history, I'm a retired guy now, but my history was working in the Flathead. I did a lot of project management, and I throw this slide up here because this, to me, is we couldn't get the committee, the steering committee, to go on these tenets, then, you know, I didn't think we should move forward. But this was, from my working life, I said, to make a project successful, you need these three things. You need great design, you need a champion for the project, and you need secure funding, and that includes materials and labor. If you have those three things, it's going to happen. So, design, we talked to a lot of folks through the leadership team, through people coming into our steering committee, with Morgan Valiant from Parks and Rec and other folks. You know, we realized that this, bringing trails up to grade, if anyone's worked on a trail crew, this is not, you know, inventing anything new. The project champion, whoever that is, and I ended up being well, no, it's kind of my area, and I wrote the grant. Someone has to sell the concept, and then you have to be the chaser, chase the resources, find a way around the roadblocks, follow up, and anybody that's done any management, that's just, you have to be out there and keeping track of it. And then the funding, the materials, the labor, again, this one broke down pretty simple, and we're trying to break the work we're doing in that park down simply. We became aware of the community forum, this large grant program, was $3,000 maximum. That seemed like that would do it. We had to round up volunteers, and we found out the city can help us with that, and that was great. So we wrote the grant. Thank you folks for getting it approved, and started the project. In the grant application, this is the exact language, and I'll just read it real quick because it's hard to read on that screen. Just said, improve an existing 1,161 natural footpath, which was actually the old service road, by cutting a new 5-foot wide trail, adding elevated 3/4 minus packed gravel surface. New stone benches will be placed along the trail for resting and viewing. And that would also include some safety modification improvements to the Stevens Avenue entrance, renewing the packed gravel surface of approximately 840 feet on the Pond Loop Trail, and the finished work would be just about 2,000 feet of improved trail connecting the main features of the park. And that's what we set out to do, and that's what was approved. So, looked like we would do it in the spring. Everybody knows it was wet and ugly, and get in there, but the day was set for May 17th, and these slides show the prep work. They've got the little track hoe in there working, cutting a grade, and you can see the plowed path is just cutting trail. The volunteers, what really made this happen, I was sweating it. We had gone around for the grant, and we had gotten letters of support and talked to neighbors, but you know, getting somebody to sign up to help is fairly easy, but then we couldn't tell them a day. When would you like to sign up for? And the day wasn't set. We finally got that, and we found that there was, school kids that are studying all this. I'd mentioned that before, and the Washington Middle School kids class was arranged to the city, and there was about over 100, I think, Colleen, over 100 kids that showed up. It seemed like, standing back, that could be a zoo. They were only going to be there for half a day. Said, how can you do 1,000 feet of trail in half a day with 100 kids? Wow. But it worked. They were well organized. They were a great crew. 2 slides here. This is the group came walking down from the school. It rained hard that day. It didn't dampen anyone's spirits. That's a photo there of Morgan speaking to the crew, talking about safety and how we would construct it. And there's a couple slides that I really like of students with wheelbarrows, and had to teach them the whole thing, how to not tip it over, but they made it happen. And they get a real sense of ownership, I think. We talked a little bit about the Stevens Avenue entrance. There's a curb cut there for the access road. You can see the farm gate. That's what it looked like, and I think we can point her with this. There it is. You can see this trail along the edge here. That used to be the footpath, and this slopes right down to the creek, and in the wintertime, that whole thing is a slip and slide. So we wanted to eliminate that, and that's what we've done on the new design here. This is the new footpath. It's hard-packed gravel. This is no different what's in the rest of the parks in the city, and that is compliant to run a wheelchair down as long as it's maintained, and that becomes an issue. And just before this presentation, I ran over and took some snapshots. This is what it looks like with the grass and the surface is smoothed out. One's looking west, and there are 2 slides there looking west and one looking east. So, what's left? The resting and viewing benches are not in place. The submitted project called for 2 or 3 benches. Morgan said that he had done this on a couple other trails. I'm not aware of where they're at, but we're a little bit limited. We need to use stone or a natural material, and then you want to get into something that's safe and all the good things that you have to consider. We wanted to get the trail in for the summer, and after their construction season's over, then we'll talk about those items. There may be a little more work to do on that Stevens Avenue entrance. We had called for some boulders to block that old trail. It may be mowed, the other trail's so nice, why would somebody walk around the end and slip in the creek? But we'll see. And that leaves us with some leftover money. We did use the city's estimates, and I think we came out really good on that. And that'll be the next slide, but we're going to rescope the remainder of that grant money, possible improve the trail to the birding area, or use for the outdoor classroom, or whatever the committee decides that they want us to do it and submit for a rescope. And we're going to meet with Morgan. That's already committed after the summer season, and then we'll finalize that planning. This path photo is to the, I'll use my pointer here, this area here to the left on this photo. That is going to get 9 large trees and a bunch of planting. This will be an fenced, that will be feeding of songbirds and so forth. We're really trying to enhance that. It's kind of well, I understand it was an old materials dump out there where, for a while, it was just a good place to get rid of excess fill and so forth. Now it's grown over, but it's very hilly. So we may use rescope to improve that trail. We actually wanted to do that trail in current with the other trail work. We applied for an America Walks grant, and we were unsuccessful in getting that America Walks grant, but it looks like there's going to be enough money here to do it. There's the real quick break in the financials, the $3,000 grant, the Ace Hardware, that was some premix to move a sign, and Knife River for gravel. Everything else was in kind. So we're setting it at $1,975. And that's really it. We want to say thank you again to the community forum and the neighborhood. The project just probably wouldn't have happened. We were pretty green coming into this, so now we're aware of the process, so we may be back. But that sign is posted on the kiosk. Kiosk was clouded plexiglass, and we used a small grant money to put new polycarbonate on that, and thanks to Colleen and her husband Randy for actually doing the work. That was separate from this project. So that's it. Questions, comments?
Thank you very much. There are a couple of people sitting up here that have been involved in some pretty significant trail projects in their own neighborhoods, and we appreciate your comments and your insight. And we have installed a number of stone benches on trails in my neighborhood, so I'm familiar with the process.
Well, Jeff, we'll take that as an invite to talk to you.
Yes, you can talk with me. I can tell you where I got them.
Well, that's great. I think that's what's great about this forum is now that we're aware of it, it's quite a resource, you know.
Yeah. The good news is I didn't have to carve them out of a cliff.
Well, I bought some landscaping stuff from Mutual Materials.
That's the place to go.
Yeah, and I don't know if the city has a deal there or it's just whatever, but that's kind of what we assumed.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at on it. That's been a lot of fun and a lot learned. I think we're on a good path to invite folks that aren't from that neighborhood to come down and take a look. I'm actually especially excited about the outdoor classroom. I think that the city's helping with that design, and that's going to be a real asset. It'll be the only park, the only natural area that has an actual outdoor classroom in the city. And that Morgan says he hopes it'll be a model. Maybe we can export it. So, good work.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda, the Van Buren Soil Wall Mural, Lillian Nelson.
I don't know if my presentation's going to work. I had to convert it before coming here, and I don't know if it worked. Well, you send an artist to do a practical job. This is what happens. Any idea?
I don't know. Did you try opening just from your?
Let me try.
That would make a difference or not? Anyone good on computers? No? Okay. I know that William's presentation had a lot to do with the artwork that she did. So we can invite you back next month or in the future too, if that would be a time when you'd rather show the pictures.
We could do that. Yeah, I think we just didn't convert correctly.
Yeah. We do have a few of your photos on our Facebook page.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I have my Facebook page as well. So. Sure. Here. Let's just reschedule.
We're a little behind time anyway, so.
Yes, thank you for coming. I travel Van Buren pretty frequently. I've watched the progress of your work. I've been very impressed. It's really added a beautiful splash of color and art to a rather drab wall. And anyone who hasn't seen it, I highly recommend. It'll brighten your day considerably. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, let me know.
Okay. Our next agenda item is the Old Sawmill District Update. Ed Weatherby.
Hi, everyone. Is it all right if I stand? I want to first say that Lily is doing a mural for us in one of our projects, and it's beautiful. It's great. I looked at the agenda. You all have a long night, so I'll try to make this short. We've had a big week in that our student resident project called the Sawyer just completed on schedule, and students will be, the last of the furniture will be moved in next week, and students will be moving in starting August 15th. So it's a big time for us. It's a big project. Otherwise, we are working hard on a restaurant that we call the Sawmill Grill. We hope to complete drawings and permitting and construction so that we can open right around the end of the year or first of next year. Most of you know, I think we completed the Cambium residential mixed-use project, and that's going well. We're at about a 50% lease-up, and so that's right on schedule. We're very happy with that. I think the big news is preparation for the concert, August 11th. We understand the City Council approved the closing of Wyoming Street, and so there's all kinds of logistics and arrangements that are being made to close off things and yet allow for residents and others to be able to access their homes. We are having a pre-concert food truck event out there as we have the last several years, and that should be a lot of fun. Otherwise, we are kind of in that planning stage, regrouping stage for the next phase, and working hard on things in the background with drawings and engineering and financing to basically plan the next level. Happy to answer any questions.
Did you say the name of the restaurant is going to be here?
The Sawmill Grill. And some of you might know there's a sign out there that points to an area that is adjacent to the trail and not very far from the stadium. We went through the process of, matter of fact, that building is designed, partially permitted, and when we got the costs back for that building, it was just undoable. So we regrouped, and the area that we had slated for a market inside the corner of Cambium, right across the street from Dog and Bicycle, is now our new location for that. It'll work out. We think it'll work out really well. And we're looking for a manager and servers and all the staffing, so happy to take any suggestions for that. Yes. Heidi.
Does the design still include a market? Is it just moved to a different space?
No, we don't have, the restaurant that we're talking about, the Sawmill Grill, will have a small component of a market, but not anything like what was originally contemplated. We struggled with that quite a bit, and as we really like the idea of a market as a community amenity, but we have the Orange Street Market not very far away, we have the Good Food Store not too far away, and of course the Fresh Market across on Broadway. But basically that's a tough industry, and with very slim margins to begin with, and with all of the delivery options that are now becoming available, we just decided that was a market, a business that we didn't really know enough about and felt like it would be a better place for the restaurant. Yes, sir.
Beyond the restaurant, do you have any other major projects in the pipeline?
We have several projects that we are working on. Depends on your definition of pipeline.
Either imminent or very long stage. I'm not fussy.
Yeah, we have, for those of you who might know, the northwest area has been slated for residential. It's zoned residential for townhomes and such. And we have townhomes designed. We're wrestling with creating the right pathways through some lot line adjustments and other things that are costly, time-consuming, troublesome. So we're trying to figure that out. And we have a couple commercial buildings, one of which has already been designed that we are hoping to lease up. And if some good things happen that we're currently contemplating, it could be that construction would start yet this year.
Now, speaking long-term, do you have a projected build-out date for the entire acreage?
We do. We've thought a lot about that. There's a couple wild cards in this scenario, though. We think if everything were to go as we think it could go, it's about a 5-year plan. We have some things to work out still in terms of the infrastructure out there. There's streets and all the essential services that have to be completed. They're not installed in the north side of the property. And that's an expensive undertaking that we're still trying to figure out.
Okay. Any other questions?
Great.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, next agenda item, neighborhood project funds.
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Sure.
And so last night, the grant committee met and discussed these items here listed. The first one is for the ASUM off-campus Renter Center Snow Shovel Grant. That's to lend shovels to university area neighbors to help with clearing their sidewalks. The grant committee approved the request unanimously last night with the strong encouragement of acquiring a $20 deposit to ensure the return of those shovels. So now we're bringing it before you. Does the grant committee have anything to add? Any comments on that?
Are there any questions about this request?
So then we can just get a motion for...
Do I hear a motion to approve this recommendation?
Carol Garlington, Moose Kangoli, I move we approve the grant.
Do I hear a second?
Mike Banner, Rose Park, second.
It has been moved and seconded that this grant recommendation be approved. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The grant recommendation has been approved. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the second one is rescoping of the Slant Street Gateway Grant. The Rose Park Neighborhood Council leadership team met last night as well, and they support rescoping a large grant and small grant for the Slant Street Gateway project. This project has been without a coordinator for quite some time and has been dormant for many years. $393.85 remains from a 2007 large grant, and $500 is still remaining from a fiscal year 2016 small grant. They would like to rescope the grants to leverage the funds toward a current neighborhood playground project. And I'll ask Mike to pipe in here if you would like.
Yeah, Parks and Rec came to us, actually. They, while the Rose Park playground didn't score high enough, and prior to the recent Parks and Trail bond issue, they have been applying for a grant from an organization called Kaboom, and Kaboom seeks out corporate sponsors, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is sponsoring a grant, so they're going to be able to get about an $85,000 upgrade to the Rose Park Playground for about $8,500. It's our responsibility to try to raise funds and solicit volunteers, and the funds will be used for food for those volunteers. I brought some flyers tonight, and I'll talk about that when we get to the Rose Park meeting. But anyway, the Slant Street Gateway, which is across the street from Station 2, we've struggled with that for the last 10 years. There's really not a plan, and so we'll bring it up again at our general meeting in September, but I'd ask that the Community Forum approve transferring the funds that Karen's been carrying around in a sack since 2007 that we could use for a more appropriate and immediate project. Thank you.
Yeah, in relation to this, I might note that, as he mentioned, that one grant was held in limbo for 12 years. And I think it might be a good idea if we had a serious discussion about how long we allow these grants to be floating around out there without being used. Without being used. I think 12 years is really excessive, and we might want to seriously consider putting some limits on how long these grants can be out there before they're actually utilized. So that's a topic for future discussion. Yes?
Would you call that a sunset clause?
That would be a sunset clause, not a Santa Claus. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion?
Bryce Road, University District, I would like to move to approve the rescoping of the Slant Street Gateway grants.
Thank you. Do I hear a second to that motion?
Leanna Waller with Captain John Mullen, I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded that this recommendation be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Seeing no opposition, the motion is carried. Thank you.
And so the third item under this section is for large grant funding recommendation. Each year, City Council allocates $20,000 for neighborhood project funds, $18,000 is directed for large grants, and $2,000 for small grants. There has not been an increase in funding for about 18 years, and there has been a loss of about 35% of buying power due to inflation. The grant committee discussed this last night, and they approved changing the maximum large grant amount of $3,000 to $6,000 per grant, and up to $6,000 a grant. And I will ask the grant committee members to comment at this point if they'd like.
Yeah. I think it's important. This is a pretty significant change, and I would like to see some thought and conversation about this recommendation. It does carry some potential implications with it. You know, as I mentioned last night, it could create the possibility of 2 or 3 neighborhoods coming up with $6,000 proposals, very strong proposals, that would basically co-opt all of the money and perhaps leave smaller but equally worthy grant applications out in the cold. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's simply speculation, but it's something we're thinking about and talking about before we make a recommendation tonight. So are there any thoughts, comments?
I will, but
Yes.
Carol Garlington, Ms. Kangully. Do I understand that the change is between 6 $3,000 grants and 3 $6,000 grants?
It could be that. It doesn't necessarily, each grant, right, but it was previously allocated
So they might
that
be
way.
smaller, all right.
Correct.
Fewer, larger, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Sure, go ahead.
So, Ray, I was part of that discussion last night, too, and one of the things that reflected on over time is that we've had grants that have been have asked for more or wanted more than 3,000, but I don't think that we've seen any at this point that have asked for 6, although that's not to preclude them from doing that. Feeling like if we could potentially fund some larger grants, that would be good. That we certainly are always in the position during the cycle to say, you want 6, we'll give you 4. There's no reason for us to have to give the entire amount if we consider that there are other grants, well, it's happened in the past, that are equally good in terms of their merit, but maybe asking for less. So that's something but I want you all to be thinking about that, because I don't think we just want the committee making the decision. So we're looking for input still. Unless there's not much discussion, we probably will move forward in that direction if you so choose us to.
Like Banner Rose Park. But the large grants still have to come before a community forum, right, to be approved? After when they come in, the leadership team or grant committee approves them, that's okay. Yeah.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. I move that we settle on $6,000 grants and for 1,000. What's the other 1,000 or 2?
It is to change the maximum amount of the large grants from $3,000 up to $6,000.
And the small grants would be?
Would remain at $2,000 total. They're up to $500.
I move that we approve that tonight.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? What?
Leanna Waller with Captain John Mullen, I'll second it.
Yeah, and as clarification, it's up to $6,000. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, the maximum amount would be.
Yeah. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. It's time to call for the vote on this item. All those in favor of this change signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you.
I guess the next item's mine as well. So we are looking to have one more person serve on the Community Forum Leadership Team. Currently, we have 6 members, and we can have up to 7. Currently, we have Ray Ayton, Jeff Stevens, Doug Grimm, Mark Foss, Janet Van Dyke, and Carol Garlington serving on the team. I will read from the bylaws real quick. These are the Community Forum bylaws. The Community Forum Leadership Team shall consist of 3 to 7 members. Members of the leadership team shall be elected members of the Community Forum and shall serve a 2-year term with no limit on the number of terms served. Candidates for the leadership team may nominate themselves or be nominated by a Community Forum member. Vote shall be cast at the next monthly meeting following nomination. And the leadership team duties are they meet 1 or 2 weeks prior to the next regular community forum to set the agenda. They approve all expenditures of community forum funds. They are responsible for drafting language for recommendations to City Council, and they establish a strategic plan with goals and tactics for the leadership team and present them to Community Forum for adoption. The Community Forum leadership team meets the second Thursday of each month, and I will ask if any leadership team member would like to comment. On what you do.
Go ahead. Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. Well, we start our meeting around 6 and try and get it over as quick as possible. It doesn't last 2 hours like this meeting does. Like when we were figuring out what to do for this meeting, I think we were done in 30 minutes.
so tonight, what you would do would be to nominate yourself as a community forum leadership team member, and then next month, the community forum will vote on that. Is anyone interested?
So I just want to say that I'd like to hear from the new people, the new ones that are on the committee. Have you found it worth it to do it, to help set the agenda and think about some of the other things that need to go on? Because I think the old farts that have been on it for a long time need to, we'd like to move off, and we'd like to get some young blood in there. So that's, anything you got to say would be helpful.
Okay, I see a lot of studied silence here.
Carol Garlington, Moose Can Gully. I found it rather interesting, but I'm still getting to know what the parameters are of how we go about it, but it's fun, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can open it up, think about it, and we can open it up next month, too. Are there any interests? Oh, Bryce?
Bryce Road University District. I would like to nominate myself for the Community Forum Leadership Team.
Good.
The voice of doom.
You're not being thrown into the lion's den. We're all very nice.
Okay, are there any other?
That on the agenda for next month.
Okay. Okay, special events. Are there any special events? Okay. Staff reports. Jane is not here. Karen.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the pre-application workshop for the large grants is going to be on September 16th. So if you want to start thinking about ideas for large grant applications, now's the time. And that large grant deadline is October 29th. And in the office, we're planning for candidates forums. We're picking dates and places and setting all of that up. Those will be late September, and we're also getting ready for a Stories and Stones tabling event in September as well.
Okay,
No report.
okay. Okay, it is time for neighborhood council reports. And this month, we will start at this end of the table. I am pointing at you, sir.
Mark Foss, Southgate Triangle. Of course, we're still working on Bellevue Park. We planted a few more trees there about 2 weeks ago. The big news is we're going to have an ice cream social August 4th in Boyd Park in conjunction with the Echo Park, or Echo Church. There'll be free hamburgers, free hot dogs, all those sides. And Baskin Robbins will be there giving away free ice cream cones. So if you get a minute, it's also going to be our general meeting for the summer. So if you get a minute, come on by, get a free ice cream cone.
Bert Lunder, Grand Creek, had a lot of work by various fire professionals trying to help residents in Grand Creek prepare for the wildfire that will sweep through Grand Creek someday. So we want to be ready when it does. There is some grant money that's going to become available along with some work by the Montana Conservation Corps. So when that gets set up for the areas that are outlying on the edges of the city and in the county, it will allow work to be done to make your home more defensible for fire, and the grant will pick up half the cost. So anyway, that's been going on, and we're looking forward to the August 12th City Council County Commission meeting, at which the proposed acquisition of the Bluebird North Hills Trailhead just beside the Snowball parking lot will be considered, and we're really hoping to see that acquisition completed and the trailhead developed in coming years. Thank you.
Danny Tenenbaum, Lower Rattlesnake. I just want to add that I spoke with Ben Weiss, our city's bike ped coordinator, a couple weeks ago, and the Lower Rattlesnake is getting a new crosswalk to access the Waterworks trailhead, which is also going to be getting a complete upgrade at some point soon. And so the crosswalk will be going across Duncan, where the cars normally enter and exit. And so that should make it a bit easier for people to access Waterworks without getting hit by a Subaru. Also, we have a leader. Oh, yeah, Doug.
Isn't that called West Reno Drive?
It changes its name. Is that what it is? Is West Reno there? I don't know. Google Maps says Duncan, but I don't think Google Maps knows. It's West Reno. All right. Well, West Reno is the street that gets the crosswalk. We also have a leadership team meeting on this coming Monday at 11 a.m. because we are planning a general meeting and ice cream social outdoors in Greeno Park at the Pavilion. And that will be happening sometime in September, on the later side of September. Hopefully the weather will hold out. And I think we will be discussing with community members about potentially applying for a large grant. For what? We'll discuss. I don't know.
Mike Painter, Rose Park. We had our leadership team meeting last night, and I do have two upcoming Rose Park items I'd like to report on. One is that we mentioned during the moving over of the grant funds that there's a volunteer day needed, as many volunteers as are interested, on Saturday, August 17th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. I bought some flyers, and our friends in the Office of Neighborhoods have also sent around links from Parks and Rec. Like I say, we're getting a brand new playground, pretty nice. It's going to be accessible for a little bit of money and a little bit of time. So if any of you are interested in assisting with that, that would be great. Rose Park, the Rose Society, and Parks and Rec are also always looking for people who might be interested in adopting part of the rose bed. So if you're interested, as you're well aware, they have quite a few memorial services in the park every year, and they certainly would appreciate your assistance. Our general meeting is set for Sunday, September 8th at Rose Park, and we'll have Big Dipper ice cream there as well. And then I just close with two historical items. One, a long time, 50-year resident of Rose Park, whose name was Alfred J. Sampson, passed away in March. He was also the fire chief in the early 80s. Al served for the fire department for 30 years. He also was a city councilor for a while, and he served on several statewide fire organizations. And his memorial service is tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And the only black mark that I'm aware of on Al's entire career was that in the early 80s he hired painter at the fire department. That's really the only bad one. And then second of all, today, when I was downtown, I ran into Dave Chrisman, who the new people may not know, but was a long-term University District Community Forum representative. And I invited him to come to this meeting. He assured me he was going to be at home watching it with his feet up with a beer. So I wanted to say hi to Dave. Dave was actually on the covered wagon when Bert and I and Ray and Jeff came, and Doug forwarded us over the river, took us to our neighborhood south of the river. He'd been here for 100 years before that. So anyway, so hi, Dave. Thank you.
Bryce Rowe, University District, would also like to say hi to Dave and a shout out. We have not met over this last month. I think on our next meeting we will be just addressing concerns about the ADA accessibility of the Higgins Street Bridge project in 2020. Besides that, we have nothing new to report.
Thanks. So Ray Aiden, Fardy's Patty Canyon. So our next neighborhood council meeting's coming up on September 5th. We're certainly going to have food. It's going to be in Whitaker Park, because at the moment our other park that we really like to have it in is still a minefield of knapweed. But ultimately we hope that now that the master plans for Ninkpata and Whitaker are pretty much in place as far as Parks and Rec that will begin, or will initiate at this neighborhood council meeting seeking funding. And I think we'll do as was described earlier, do the private donations through probably the Friends of the Missoula Parks. So that's it for us.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street Neighborhood Council. There have been no new developments recently on the Hillview Townhome project, although it did come up in a larger context in city council discussion about townhomes in general. There was a rather large story in the Missoula this morning. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you get a hold of it and read it. It's very informative. Thank you.
Ed Mulder, Riverfront. We had a meeting on July 8th. We had a joint meeting with the Riverfront Neighborhood Council leadership team and the Stadium Task Force for the Osprey Stadium or Ogren Stadium. We were just discussing with the task force to, how to kind of plan ahead for the upcoming concert and other baseball games that are coming up, and Nick Chakota and Ed Weatherby were both attended that meeting too and gave their insight on what their plan is, and it's very well thought out, and looks like on August 11th the concert will go probably be quite a success based on everything that we talked about. And we also Ben Weiss from the Missoula Bike Pedestrian, he's the program manager. He let us know that on 5th and 6th streets, they're going to restripe those streets between Higgins and Russell for more pedestrian access and also for better biking access through 5th and 6th streets. So that was a good, that's something that we've been working on for a few years. So that was a good deal. That's all I have. Thanks.
So before you drop off, does everybody know the concert you're talking about?
Yeah, the concert is Mumford and Sons concert.
Okay.
On
How many
August
people
11th.
are you expecting?
They're expecting be probably around 7,000 people, I think, right around there. They've made some improvements to Osprey Stadium, or I should call it Ogren Stadium, but for better access in case there was an emergency or something, they have better exiting, and they've made those improvements. They've also made some better improvements in the back of the stadium by the river where the semis can park and be hooked up that are part of the band. And they'll have hookups there so the semis won't have to stay idling and with the engines on, like a lot of times you'll see behind or at concerts, so they can be all hooked up with whatever they need, so they don't need to be burning fuel. And so that was another major upgrade that they did to this for bigger stadiums. They're looking at maybe doing, this is the first one, this is the only one they're going to do this summer. They're likely going to do, they're looking at probably 4 every summer in the future, so.
Randall Gunn, North Side, West Side. We had our leadership team meeting last Monday where we discussed we're doing our own couple parks, reworking the West Side Park and discussing reworking the First Street Pocket Park near the pedestrian bridge. We also had to elect some new leaders or some new members due to people moving away. We also discussed and planned our upcoming general neighborhood meeting, which is at the Little McCormick Park on August the 14th, and food will be provided by Notorious PIG. That's it, thank you.
Carol Garlington, Moose Can Gully. The Moose Can Gully and the South 39th Street leadership teams met on Monday. Jeff already told you about that the Hillview Crossing proposal, we've just decided to table until there's actually new information. We spent most of our time on the online questionnaire. Our questionnaire is available on the neighborhood website under the Moose Can Gully neighborhood or the South 39th Street. And it's still available, and you're invited to look at it if you wish, or to possibly adapt it to your own neighborhoods if you want. What we found, we asked people to name their top 3 priorities, and under every priority, there was a box for specific concerns, and we found that very valuable. We only had 27 responses after having sent out postcards to everybody in both neighborhoods with the link to the website on it. So there wasn't a lot of response, but the detail that we got was very helpful. By the numbers, the top priorities were other. We had 3 other categories by way of being open-ended and letting people formulate their own ideas of what the priorities were instead of the prefab ones. Other was top, urban deer was second, and streets and sidewalks tied for third. But once we looked at the specific details and found that a lot of the questions were things that could be easily addressed through the resources pages. There were already channels that people could call in and take care of things, and a lot of the other categories really belonged somewhere else. And once you get really down to looking at it, it seemed that the top annoyance in our neighborhood was urban deer, and second was homeless and transients. But instead of, like a year ago, we heard that, or 2 years ago, we heard that, but didn't know what to do with it. And now we know that at the Brook Street Walmart, there are big issues with people panhandling and staying overnight and encroaching on the nearby neighborhoods, and that there are things that we can do, like have burnt out lights replaced and some landscaping changes possibly, and some extra patrols that would really help the neighborhood. So we found it useful to do it that way. And now we're looking for better ways to advise City Council on some of our priorities, and one of our members is going to investigate how to get a study of the urban deer started. And maybe later on we'll try to ask some other neighborhoods if they'd like to join, but we're just going to try and do something to get the ball rolling. So that's all. Thank you.
Wilson Neidig for the River Road neighborhood. We met last week to plan our general meeting, which is scheduled for September 11th at 6 p.m. at Garden City Harvest on River Road.
Lewis and Clark neighborhood. We took July off, which was great. We have met for the last 2 years, 12 months, and I've gone to 2 meetings a month for us, being on the steering committee for the pond. But we are planning our general meeting in September, and we'll finalize that in August, and that's what we're up to. Thanks.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. I think most people in the Rattlesnake this time of year kind of lay low. I haven't heard of much happening except there's one hot item I've become aware of. And Grant Creek report mentioned something about forest fires, and there is a forest fire up in the Rattlesnake at Bees Cove Creek. And now, how far is that from the end of the trailhead if you go up Van Buren? Well, I would say if you were at Cabela's and you drove to the red X's, that's about where the fire is up there, or maybe another mile beyond. Bees Cove Creek, I think that area was named after a family that lived there. And I saw an aerial shot this evening, or this afternoon, and it looks like the fire is going up 2 gullies. It probably is around 40 acres right now, and of course it wouldn't be a 40-acre square. If you want to know what 40 acres is, I would guess that it's an area about 3 blocks by 3 blocks. If you are interested in the rattlesnake, and I've lived up there 73 years now, there's a fellow named Forrest Poe that was born up there, and I think his family moved out around 1918 or so. I was a friend of his, and he gave me a book about the size of a Reader's Digest that he had written about his life in the rattlesnake before they were forced to sell and move into town. There was one family that lived beyond his, and in one of the chapters, I think it's chapter 3 in his book, he describes the family one winter that lived at the very end of the rattlesnake. Two of their children froze to death, or died rather, from a disease, and they put them in a sled and then piled the furniture on top of them after they were frozen solid, and came down the trail past Forrest Poe's families and left some cattle and some sheep and continued on into town. And at that time, I suppose there was 3 feet of snow up there, and I have seen 2.5 feet of snow in my lifetime twice where I live, which would be across from Rattlesnake School. So I think it would be a bad idea to go up Van Buren and try and see something action, because they'll probably be having helicopters pulling water out of the creek, and the road is narrow, and they don't need you in the way. So just tell everybody, you heard about the fire, and it's not going to bother anything probably. So that's the report from the rattlesnake.
Leanna Waller with Captain John Mullen. We continue to meet monthly. We met just last week, and right now we just have a continuation of discussions about a development that's planned for areas south of 44 Ranch and Flynn Ranch. I believe it's called Heron's Landing. And we finalized a letter to support the build grant. So those are things that we're working on right now and discussing. And other than that, no new updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The City Council liaison is present. I'm pleased to report she's been busy tending to a meeting, and now she's going to report on City Council activities.
Oh, man. City Council is very busy this time of year, so we have started budget presentations, and the public, or anyone that's interested can follow along and see what we've seen so far. The city has a website, and the easiest thing is actually just to Google it. If you Google 2020 preliminary budget Missoula, it's the first thing that pops up, and you can see all of the budget requests that have been made by the different departments that we've seen so far. So we've seen fire, municipal court, the attorney's office, public works water, wastewater, the Housing and Community Development Department, and then Parks and Recreation thus far. And you can look at all of the requests, including the ones that were funded and the ones that weren't funded. And then you have an opportunity to, come to any committee meeting, really, and give public comment. There has been no public to give comment on any of these items thus far. And it's a really important, process to be engaged in. So the public hearing on the overall budget is coming up on August 19th. But feel free to comment anytime during the process. And then there's also some other really cool public hearings coming up. One on the adaptive reuse policy that I mentioned last time I was here. That's coming up on August 12th. The new TED rules that are being proposed by Development Services are going to Planning Board on August 6th, and prior to that, and then prior to it coming back to us, the public can comment on those as well. And then something that's coming up pretty quick is the deadline to comment on the downtown master plan. So if you haven't had a chance to look over it yet, that deadline is coming up on August 1st. There's a lot of things happening. Some other just really exciting things that have happened is that we did have a public hearing and passed the housing policy on June 24th, and now we can really start delving into the details that'll make that a reality. And then we've also approved a pavement assessment, which I'm excited about. So basically, we'll map all of our streets and find out what the quality of the pavement is, and we can take care of some of those potholes. And then, we also have had a public hearing and approved an annexation policy last Monday. So, let me know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? Any questions? Yes.
Randall Gunn, Northside, Westside. Where can I go to comment on the master plan?
I think you can just go online.
Okay.
Or you're welcome to send your comment to me, and I'll pass it on to the Downtown Association.
Okay, thank you.
We also have a link in the weekly digest that will go out tomorrow, and you can look in there as well.
Do you mind just talking about the discussion about e-bikes for just a minute and what's happened there, or e-vehicles? I'm just curious.
That was a very active discussion. So where we've landed right now is that Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes, which if you were to go test ride an e-bike here on Higgins at one of the bike shops, you'd probably ride a Class 1 bike. And it's a bike that you can turn the power on, and then it'll match the power that you're giving it by a percentage. So it starts at like 25% all the way up to 150. And then a Class 2 bike, I've never ridden one, I think is more of a hauling bike. So those are now allowed on commuter trails, but no scooters anywhere, which really means they can't be anywhere, because by state law, they can't even be in the public right away. So I hope that...
I was just in Spokane a couple days ago, and downtown and surrounding areas are crawling with those kinds of bicycles and scooters, and they are all over the sidewalks and zipping off the sidewalks into the middle of the street in an unannounced fashion, and somewhat chaotic. If the city council wants to get a vision for the future, if they approve them, they might be well advised to go to a place like Spokane and get an eyeful. So, any other comments, questions?
Nothing precedent. Bryce Road University District, I guess I do have nothing to say. I am in support of the e-scooters.
Well, they look like a lot of fun, but they have their drawbacks. Let's put it that way. Okay, I will be reporting to the City Council on this meeting on August the 5th. As usual, I'll be reporting on all of the presentations, all of the action items, the recommendations we made on project funds, and I'll also be reporting on our new nominee for the Community Forum Leadership Team. Are there any other items you would wish me to discuss when I report to the City Council? Okay, seeing none. Next meeting moderator will be Julie Devlin, and that meeting will be August 22nd, and this meeting is adjourned.